All right. And so I'm sure you all are wondering, like, where did this come from? Like, Black women actually talking about ourselves, our identities, our spirits, our spiritualities, and what is it that we don't know already about our lived experiences? And so a lot of our lived experiences, what we know is that, yep, we're super women, yep, we're magic, yep, we do all the things. And we are suffering in silence from a lot of historical trauma. And when I talk about historical trauma, this is the sanctioned, the textbook definition of historical trauma is the sanctioned dehumanization of collective groups of people through religion, through colonization, through, of course, the enslavement, like all of the things. And as Black women are the origins of civilization, you can only imagine how much we have been through as a collective, how much we have survived, we have sustained, and now we're in this cycle of unpacking, healing, recovering, and uncovering who we are. So, as a result of all of the generational harms and historical traumas that we have sustained throughout time, we got some residue in there that we are still trying to heal and uncover. And this is why we are here in this space, because we want to get to the root. We want to get to the root of our healing so we can create spaces of joy. We can thrive, and we can do this not only for ourselves and our communities, for the generations ahead of us and the generations behind us. And so it's a huge, a tall tale, but this is why many of us are called into this work, because we came here saying, yes, I want to heal and balance and harmonize a lot of the harms that we have experienced historically. And so that part of that is the reason why I have put together this course, because I do believe it's a lot of hidden her stories that we are unaware of that needs to be brought into the light so we can begin healing at the root. And so just a little bit of background and context. This beautiful woman, this is Mama Zogby, and she also went by Hunter, Vivian Hunter Hindru. And she is a researcher, a scholar, a teacher, and she created what this book is what I call a masterpiece, and it is one of the texts that we are going to use in this program. And the name of the book is The Sibyls, the Prophetess of Mamiwata. And in this book, she uncovers a lot of our suppressed histories in terms of our power, our spiritual power, our leadership power, our authority in terms of everything from politics to spirituality, to our indigenous lands, to nature, to planting, to growing, like all of the things that Black women have contributed, have originated and contributed, and how that has been demonized and separated. In fact, every religion, all of the world religions, histories began with the Black woman. And so, in learning this, and of course it's hidden, and when I say learning this, there are a few authors out there who have done extensive research around our identities and histories. But again, unless you are in I would say an academic study program, or unless you are really well versed at where to go to find the right sources and resources to get the information, it remains hidden, especially in relationship to origin stories around Black women and our histories and our lineages. And so I want to share with you this powerful, powerful quote. I want to read it out loud. Many Black women are born not knowing that their suffering stems from their disconnection with their ancient rights and spiritual duty to continue the work of the ancient mothers, our lineage mothers, our ancient mothers, our cosmic mothers. The suppression of the ancient history of the African matriarchs and their contributions to world religion, magic, spirituality, and prophecy is one of the greatest cover ups and divine tragedies in human history. And so there would be no organized world religions if it wasn't for the Sibyls, for the oracles, for the high priestess, for the African matriarchs who created the foundation for all of which came after that. And so this program that I have created is really rooted in a lot of the scholarship that I have done over the last 7, 8 years now of really digging deeper to reclaim those African, and I use the word African as to represent kind of like this collective, but it's big and it's broad, and it's also rooted in us being the indigenous root people, and that's all over the world, in Africa, in the Americas, in Asia, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that and how how these concepts sometimes have us thinking very myopic, very, very small, when we need to be thinking more globally about the role and the identity of Black women and Black womanhood across the globe. And so I say that this certification program is my own personal call to action in terms of addressing what Mama Zogby and so many other Black women scholars and activists and spiritualists talk about when they tell us that our healing, the root of our healing, is in reclaiming who we are, whose we are, our spiritual power, our cosmic power. And again, this power is not a power over, it is a power, it is an innate power, a call for us to be in our power as God, as Goddess. And so this program is an offering to honor the legacies and the wisdom teachings of our African, our indigenous, our root ancestors, as they are now more than ever urging us to remember who we are, to reclaim our innate power, to heal the fragmentation that has been created as a result of the suppression and the demonization of our embodied spiritualities, of our embodied wisdom, of our embodied teachings, and to disrupt all of the isms. As a result, you got the sexism and capitalism, imperialism, globalism, racism, all of these systems that have been built to keep us small, to keep our spirit power suppressed, to keep our bodies disconnected from our spirits, to continue to have us externalize our magic, looking for someone or something to come and save us, or to elevate us, or to help us, or to make us whole again. And so this program puts a lens on what it means to be fully in our power by knowing again who we are, who our mothers are, who our spiritual lineages are, as well as our physical lineages, much of which has been disrupted, has been fragmented, intentionally disrupted and fragmented through centuries of conquest of Black women's minds, bodies, and spirits. And why do we want to do this? It's because we want to reclaim our right to rest. My research shows that Black women are exhausted. And in that exhaustion, we become disconnected from our bodies. We become disconnected from our purpose. We become disconnected from our families, from our partners. And so these things have denied us a right to rest, something as simple as rest, restoration, joy. Many of us don't know what it's like to experience joy. If you ask the average Black woman, what does joy mean to her? She'll just stare at you. I was one of them. So I'm not even saying this from a third person standpoint. For a long time, I couldn't tell you what joy meant because I didn't have the spaciousness in my life to even navigate any spaces of joy. And so these systems have denied us also our cosmic authority to our own divinity, to our own divinity. We have become subjugated to systems that tell us that God is outside of ourselves, that God is the embodiment of a man, that God that we're mere sinners, and that we are an abomination to God. Like all of the things, all of the teachings that tend to put Black women at the bottom of all hierarchies. This is intentional. And this has been done over generation after generation after generation. And so, in my own work, and there's a lot of work to be done. And so, in my little segment of the world, I focus on the soul wounding effects of historical trauma and how the repeated dehumanization and subjugation of Black women's bodies, the forced disconnection from our ancestors, the demonization of our indigenous spiritualities have created this deep, profounding rupture in our souls. And that rupture, unbeknownst to us, is silently transmitted to the next generation because the next generation lives and breathes in our bodies, in our wombs. And so that pain and that harm, regardless of how strong we are, regardless of how much we have overcome and how resilient we are passing it on from generation to generation to generation. And so in this program, I am going to lean into this embodied, spiritualized approach to healing because again, that harm and that trauma, whether you're conscious of it or not, it lives and breathes in the very cells of our bodies. And so through this program, we're going to be studying authors, spiritualists, and healers that hold. Is there a question? And if not, can you mute? I'm hearing. Um, and so we're going to be studying authors, spiritualists, healers that hold the truth that soul trauma, as experienced by Black women, requires soul-based spiritual practices to heal. And I'll get into what some of those practices are. But again, these are embodied practices rooted in our connection to spirit. And when I say our connection to spirit, that's our connection to the cosmos. That's our connection to the land. That's our connection to the water. That's our connection to the wind. That's our connection to each other. That's our connection to music. That is connection to every living, breathing aspect of this world and beyond. And how do we engage masterfully and mindfully at maintaining these connections so we can create lives that are in harmony, that are in balance, that doesn't constantly extract our power and our labor, even our most of all our families. This extraction of our labor, that's a real thing. And so, as I said before, I am so very grateful that you are here answering your own call because it is that. you have been divinely led to this space to continue to do this work. You already see yourselves in this work as being generational pattern breakers, as being generational. And we talk about breaking generational curses. And I want to reframe that and think about creating generational healing, creating generational power, creating generational connections. And that's so very important because on the other side of that healing is creation. And so, how do we be so radically in our power that we get to literally create the world that we want to see? We literally get to create the world for the next generation and the next generation. So, how can we? Because that's our birthright. That's what we're due. We're Black creative mommy. We're the creators. We're the origin of all of this. And so how do we radically stand in that power and be that? And so that is kind of some context and a little bit of background in terms of why I created this particular course. And I'm going to get into like who I am because I don't know everybody in this space. And so I'll share a little bit more about my background momentarily. But before we get any deeper, I would like to invite us into a brief grounding because please believe that we are not in this work alone, that we have ancestors that are on standby, always with us, whispering in our ear, like, yes, now is the time, do this work, heal your lineage, awaken to who you are. Like they are so excited. And so I want to invite them into this space to assist us to hear so we can be able to listen with our hearts, not just our intellect and our ears, but also to listen full body with our hearts. And so we're going to do a brief grounding. I'll do some more in the way of introduction, or organization, and myself, so you get to know who I am. And then I'll dive down into the syllabus to share with you the course modules, what we be covering over the 12 weeks within the program. And then we'll talk about an enrollment, how do we get started? I'll pause now. I've been doing a lot of talking. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So I invite you into
Just
this.
gratitude, gratitude,
Thank you.
gratitude,
Thank you.
gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I'm going to invite you into a brief grounding. You may already have your own practice for grounding. And so if you so choose, you can engage in that. But if not, you just please follow the sound of my voice. And if you want to turn off your cameras for the grounding, please feel free to do so. This particular grounding is a heart activation. Again, activating our heart center so we can hear with our heart while also inviting our ancestors into this space. And so I invite you to close your eyes and just allow your body to settle. Feeling the ebb and flow of your breath. And drawing an awareness to your heart center. Setting the intention that it is open to receive truth, wisdom, clarity, that it is open to receive that which is ancient and familiar. And as you draw your awareness to your breath and to your body, visualize yourself in the middle of a circle of love surrounded by your benevolent ancestors, spirit guides, master teachers, any of your relational deities who want to show up with you and to support you. And now take a moment to find yourself in a place of gratitude for all those who are now in your circle. And as you begin to look around, take a moment and set your own personal intentions for being here in this place and in this space in this moment. And I will set some intentions for the collective to hold this sacred container, to open our hearts, to receive life force energy into our hearts, to feel our hearts, to listen to our hearts, to trust our hearts, to hear the wisdom of our hearts, to speak from our heart, to lead from our hearts, to heal our hearts, and to honor our hearts as a sacred center of intelligence, divine wisdom, harmony, truth, and balance. And so it is. And so I would like to share a little bit about myself. And when you are ready, you can come back into the space. I know some of you are probably still zenned out, but you can come back and turn your cameras back on if you so choose. So I want to share a little bit about myself. I am Dr. Kimberly J. Davis. I have a PhD in philosophy and religion with an emphasis on women's spirituality. So not only am I a scholar, like that's the technical stuff, but I embody spirit. I'm a spiritualist. I live this work. I breathe this work. I lean into my ancestors, my spirit guides. I meditate. I do yoga. Like this is my life, being connected to that which is me and that which is beyond me, that which extends out into the collective. But I wasn't always this way. And so I consider myself to be a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy survivor, meaning that while I was once immersed in those systems for survival for close to 30 years as a corporate executive, I now intentionally live my life on the margins, and that is as a spiritualist, entrepreneur, scholar, teacher, and activist. And my work centers the lived experiences of Black women who suffer in silence from the effects of historical and intergenerational harm and trauma. And so, why do I do this? Because healing these trauma effects that are passed down through our lineages, and sharing this healing wisdom in community, it creates the spaciousness we need for familial, communal, and universal healing, which is my inspiration for all of the work that I do, for the courses that I create, for the Journey Healing Institute, which is a nonprofit organization that I have created that centers the healing of Black and Brown women through educational programs, through healing labs, hands-on healing labs, which are hands-on healing practices. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But our mission, and I just want to share our mission. I am the founder of Journey Healing Institute, and our mission is to provide transformative, spiritualized, ancestral, traditional, and indigenous research. Going back, Sankofa, going back and fetching it. This is the way that I look at research education, and practical tools, resources, and programs. I am a practitioner. I just don't research and write just for the hell of researching and writing. And so I also teach people how to put rituals and practices and to embody the teachings and the wisdom and not just pontificate and talk about it and have it be performative. And so the Journey Healing Institute is a healing collective, and it was founded on the principles of healing justice. And it is made up of spiritualists, dreamers, educators, and healing practitioners who use spiritualized healing technologies in community. We are using these technologies in community. And I had referenced the healing labs, but that's what our healing labs is all about, is how do we bring people with similar needs, with similar issues together in one space to be able to invite our ancestors and to use spiritualized approaches to healing our fragmented bodies. Our bodies become fragmented just by the everyday back and forth of living in a Black female body, to restore our overconsumed bodies, to reclaim ancestral and cultural lineages, and to resist the effects of internalized systemic oppression. And I know that's a lot in terms of a mission, but if I narrow it down, it's like we do healing centered education for Black and Brown Indigenous women. Some of our program offerings, and I alluded to that earlier, was again educational courses and programs and certifications. This is one of our first certification programs in terms of an educational certification program. I've done a lot of Reiki certification programs, energy healing programs. I created last year a soul to soul healing program that focused on healing, or offering education and literature around healing the effects of intergenerational trauma. And we have also launched Neurocatalyst Academy, which is a micro school for Black and Brown neurodivergent children. And Kira, I'm not sure if Kira is on here, but Kira Davis is the founder and the head of that particular program that is part of the umbrella of program offerings that we do at Journey Healing Institute. And one of the things that we do is especially in terms of the micro school, is that those Black and Brown neurodivergent children got mamas who need support in their child's journey, and we offer them that support through our healing labs. And so some of the healing labs that we've done, and what the healing lab does is, again, it takes a particular a common issue. I don't even want to say issue. People with common lived experiences, like K through 12 educators, and dealing with burnout, dealing with compassion fatigue, who deal with a similar lens or a similar frame of imbalances, that they can come into the sacred space, the sacred container, through ritual and put it in community. And so a lot of our harm happens in community, so we advocate for healing in community. And lastly, we do also healing intensives. And so we're just starting to kick that off. And that is more deeper dive into a lot of the healing labs and the courses, and kind of pulling it all together into retreat spaces. I don't like to call it retreat because it's not just about, laying up and getting massages. It really is about doing the intense healing work, the healing and recovery work, in order to open ourselves up to the joy. And so that's looking at it more as a holistic approach to our work. And so those are some of our program offerings. I would be remiss if I did not share with you Journey Healing Institute, which is the umbrella under which I am offering this course. And so I'm going to pause here. I've said a lot, and I do want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have so far before I dive down into the expectations of the course and the program. And if you have questions, just shout them out because I can't see everybody in the space. And so unmute yourself and feel free to share. And if no questions, I'll keep going.
Okay, I feel called.
Hmm.
So Sistren that I had, this is Medea Brooks. Sistren and I have shared the link with, talked about it for the last couple of weeks, was down on it when we got started, and I sent y'all the link again. Why did I send y'all the link? I don't want to call y'all out by name, but what caused me to share this so urgently with you all for the people I shared it with? Talking stick in the middle. Please respond.
Medea, you went back on mute. Was
I
there?
did because I want the women I shared it with to respond on why I shared this and was so over and over like, y'all, please link into this, please link in. So I'm requesting that people I shared it with, why do you feel like I shared this with you?
Mm,
I'll go first. I don't know if you can see that my hand is raised, but I'm Raquel. I did reach out to Miss Brooks maybe last week or a few days ago. She's actually one of my go-to mentors, just
mm,
with a healing journey. And I have a spiritual child, and I have so much codependency this way, not just from my internal family, but everybody. And I always feel overwhelmed, and I'm like, dude, I am drained. And so my daughter always have questions, a lot of things that I can't answer. And
mm,
so I come to her. I believe my daughter reaches out to her too, but I recently came to her because I parted ways with my job because super drained there. And one of the worst exhaustions is spiritual exhaustion. And I've been out of work for 2 months. And to this day, I still have people calling me for everything, like financially and everything. And I'm like, if I'm not stable, then what happens? And so now here we are, and the whole world's in this freaking uproar, like, oh my God, Raquel's not working. And I'm like, dude, I am not your go to.
mm,
And
mm.
so part of that is like my recent why. She sent me this link.
Yes. And that's so powerful, Raquel. Thank you so much for naming that. Because there is also a certain amount of shame and guilt that we tend to experience when we finally stand up for ourselves or we finally say, enough is enough. And there was a time when our ancestors, when our mothers, when our grandmothers, when they weren't able to do that. And so they couldn't name the source of their exhaustion and the fatigue. And it wouldn't matter if they named it anyway, because they still were conditioned to keep going, to keep going, to keep going, to keep going. And so now we are in this place. I don't want to call it privilege. I want to call it duty. Well, we have a duty to reclaim them from their exhaustion and fatigue because all of that leads to health issues, premature death, heart disease, that like all of the things are rooted in exhaustion, fatigue, being overconsumed, overextended, and not even having the languaging or the energy to push back and to say no and to say I need to breathe and to say no, I need to stop. And so I thank you for naming that because that is another real reason why I've gotten into this work for myself was watching how that historical and intergenerational trauma, watching how it has showed up and played itself out. And I have two adult sons, and how it reinscribed how it was reinscribed into their lives. And that's even with feeling like you're doing all the good things. You working and you making the money and you putting them through school and blah blah blah. And yet and still you're repeating these patterns of self-sacrifice. You're repeating these patterns of work, work, work. You're repeating these patterns of not having a life, not being able to experience joy, not being able to find joy, of being again your labor extracted, your mind extracted, your spirit extracted, your body extracted, where you are now completely depleted and have nothing for yourself. And so that has also been a catalyst for me in being in doing this scholarship, doing the research, doing the readings, and creating the course. So thank you for naming that.
So I'll go next. My name is Sashet Ali. And so thank you all for uh, sharing space today. And thank you, Dr. J, for bringing this program. And last but never not least is my sister and Medea. That's my sister, y'all. So yeah, so me and Medea always build on so many different levels and conversations relating to sisterhood, ancestry, spiritualities, and just life in general. And life has a way to always connect you along our pathway, right? And our paths cross through a program and it just built from there. But sometimes it's the spiritual connection that you have with people that makes you lifelong family. And so Medea did share the link with me based off of the history that we have building on your initiative naturally though. You know what I mean? Naturally.
Mhm.
So the path came full circle right back around like 360, like a nice boomerang. Like we always, we throw out that good energy, the good energy comes back. And now she shared this program. So give thanks, Medea. I appreciate you, beloved. And I call her she's the gateway. She's like the bridge. Like,
Yes,
she's definitely the bridge. So I appreciate you.
she is. She is the true and living, as she says of us. She is the true and living.
She
Yes, she is.
absolutely is.
God body. God body. Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments? This is beautiful. And I'm so humbled that I get to share this in my community. I've shared this work again for the last few years, but very rarely having an audience of my own sisters who really need it. Creating this work for us by us, right?
Mhm.
So
I'll share.
go
Okay.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll share. My name is Keisha, as it's listed here as Guys Keisha. I've known Medea shared this with me, but I also had the pleasure of meeting you, Dr. Kim, on the or Kim, on the cruise and had an amazing time. A time that me and my sons will never forget. Like it's nonstop talking about it and just being in the space with other like-minded women um, did so much for my soul. Did so much for my soul, and I mean, I could talk about like the reasons that Medea had shared it with me, but I think that she knows who I am, and she knows that in my path and journey that this is something that would add to the dynamic of who I am. And so I'm definitely excited. I think that's why everybody doesn't really have any questions because we're all just like excited and just in awe of this presentation of something like this existing and with the intention, the pure intention behind it. I know that's what it is for me. So I'm like really reluctant to, do certain things, but I know that when Medea does share things with me, she does know who I am and I know who she is and she knows that this is something that women need, women of color need. And I read, I believe her name is Trisha Hersey, and she
Yes.
talks about rest.
Yes.
And that was something that I read her first book last year. And that was amazing. And I started reading her second book on the cruise. And, this is right in alignment, just for me. So I am in a space of gratitude. I have been looking for it. I have put my alarm on here for me I start school, first day of school with the kids tomorrow. So I had to make sure that I was here to hear the presentation. And again, I'm excited and I don't want to over talk and talk and talk and talk, but I too have two sons. And, you know, y- for me, it's about rebuilding and being able to go back and to take what was already done, build upon that while also creating something new for my sons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashe, Dr. Kim, can I just share briefly?
Yes, ma'am.
And I appreciate everyone on the call, and I'm so grateful to the ones who responded, the ones who are going to respond, not just from me, but from you and from all the sisters here on this open house right now. Yesterday was 6 years for my mama. Monday was 3 years for my grandma who lived beyond 100, who got my mother, helped her get out of here. But this work is so pertinent right now. And that's why I asked my people, like, why y'all think I shared it with you? Like, I didn't know what my people was going to say, but it's like, it's so relevant that we realign to our birthright. So I'm
Yes.
very grateful. And I just wanted to share that. Please use our voices.
Yes.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. Gratitude. And I see Dion's hand is up. Hi, Dion. I miss you. Dion, are you on mute? Okay. Where did Dion go? All right. Is she still in here or maybe she left? I'm gonna keep going because like I said, it's a little difficult for me to see the
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay, I don't know
Hey,
which button I'm pushing.
beloved.
Hi, Dr. Kimberly J.
How are you? I miss you.
I miss you too, and that is exactly why I am here. Just for everyone in the room, Dr. is at I won't say where, but I'll just say one of my professors. And I was so looking forward to taking this class with you this semester. And I went to go purchase my textbooks and I didn't see your name teaching the class anymore. I'm like, wait, what's going on? I was like, I don't want to take this class with anybody else. So just an FYI, I dropped that class and I'm here
Mhm.
listening in where I can still get this information and knowledge from you. It was one of the reasons I took the course is because I appreciate you and I appreciate you, what you bring to the table and how you bring it to the table. I've always felt so inclusive in your courses and I can see myself in that. And I didn't want to have that experience in a space. Yeah, I didn't want to have that experience in unfamiliar space. I wanted to have this experience with this class, with you who designed this class and this work. So here I am, and I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. And I am so very grateful to have you here. And I'm curious,
Ashe.
who's teaching the course?
Um, Professor Elam.
Elam. Who's that? That
Ah, oh my goodness.
is she in a different
Somebody not from the department. Excuse me. Hey, Dion. I was in the program too, but I sat
Oh,
out for
okay.
now.
Okay.
I got all the way to my comps.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting. I don't know who Professor
I
Elam
can't,
is.
Taylor,
Oh,
Tyler.
Taylor, Taylor,
Yes.
I do know Taylor. Oh my
Okay.
God.
Ain't they slick,
Yeah.
She,
child? All right, let's go.
okay. Okay, 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 okay.
Yes. So that's who the course is being done by. But
Oh,
I dropped it, one, because you weren't there, and I had an opportunity also to take a course because I'm also do mental health counseling. So I was able to get into another elective that allows me to do what I'm doing and to come over here and see what I can learn from you still. So thank
awesome.
you
Thank
for
you
being
so much.
you.
Thank you for sharing and thank you for being here and
Absolutely.
answering this call. And so I'll keep going. I just have a couple of more slides to get through with you all. And I really want to build upon what the certification program is and what the goals and objectives are. But before I get into it, another quote, and I love quotes. But I love this quote by Lucia Birnbaum, and it's from the book Dark Mother. And she says, recognizing the ultimately African origins of world religions challenges the patriarchal belief that the oldest divinity was male, as well as the feminist belief that the prehistoric female divinity originated with the West Asian agricultural revolution. And so there are a lot of mistruths, misconceptions, and again, hidden histories when it comes to the origins of Black women and their power and their divinity. And so this 12-week immersive, I call it immersive offering, is created to support healing, primarily to support our healing, ancestral remembrance, and spiritual reclamation. And so I said, I mentioned the word or the concept indigenous. Again, I use that word to denote root people. And these are people whose ancient ancestors have origin and roots to the land and place. And so throughout antiquity, Black women are indigenous to every land mass of the planet. We are the original mothers of creation, and that means a thing. So that is not something that cosmologically we need to be making light of. It and looking at our social positioning, looking at hierarchies, why are we at the bottom when we are the original creators of it all? And so, how do we reconcile with that? How do we even acknowledge that? Many of us don't even know really what that means. And so, with this program, we're going to be reading authors and spiritualists and people who have done that work, who have gone back and done that work that validates our beingness as both root people of land and root people of spirit. And so through that matrilineal DNA, we trace our ancestry back to the beginning of time. We again are the indigenous creators of creation. And so this course in and of itself was born out of my own journey to discovery because I didn't know this stuff. I had spent 10 years building a holistic healing practice. And when I first started my holistic healing and wellness business in Chicago, I had a brick and mortar in Chicago. I was blown away at the fact that most of the people coming through my doors were white folk, were white women. And I was like, well, where I didn't build this space for them. Like, where are my sisters? Well, my sisters were afraid of their own indigenous knowledge. They were afraid of root work. They were afraid of energy work. They didn't know about it. So how is it that we don't know about that of which we created? And so that spoke volumes to the disconnect. I would go to conferences and workshops, metaphysical spaces, all ran by white people. I was like, this is ass backwards. Like, what's really happening? We are the most religious people on the planet, but why aren't we tapped into our spiritualities? Where's the disconnect? And that is what prompted me to go back to do the PhD in religion and spirituality, is to find my people, to find my sisters, to find us at the root, to find out what happened, where that disconnect happened. And this is what I want to bring and to share in this space. And so, because of that disconnect, that severance, that leads us open again to consistently be abused, misused, because we don't know who we are and where we come from. And so this 12-week program, it marries our lived experiences, our contemporary lived experiences as Black women here in these Americas, in these in the world. It marries it with the separation and the dismemberment of our spirit and spiritualities, and that disconnect. How do we marry that disconnect back in order that we can reclaim our power, reclaim our rest, reclaim our joy? Because these are the things that we need to create something new, and not just have our labor extracted, versus us being the creators of that, of what we want to be and see in the world, the original creators. And so this program, it's a 12-week program beginning September 24th, ending December 17th, where we will meet live in community every Wednesday from 7 to 9:30 p.m. And then on Fridays, we'll have a community space where we can gather online. And so there are going to be 4 course modules and assignments. Again, I am a professor, so it is going to be regimented and structured as if I was teaching this course at a university, even though it's a public course. And because of that, at the end of the course, you will, based upon completion of the course and the assignments, it's not going to be as, rigorous where every week you got an assignment due. We'll talk about the syllabus, but you will have assignments that will allow you to integrate the course materials into your own lives, into your own practices. And be able to, for those of you who are in academic programs, be able to take this knowledge and wisdom and apply it to some of your papers and some of the coursework that you have in those programs. And so I get it that everyone will not be able to make the live sessions, but the sessions will be recorded and you can replay them as often as you need be. So you don't have to attend every single live course or session. And I will be providing a lot of supplemental materials in the way of handouts and PDFs and videos and other lecture materials for you to be able to process and read on your own. So right now, the core faculty of the program will be myself. I will be teaching most of the course modules, and I just threw my bio up there for people who are unfamiliar with my particular background in teaching and education. And I already spoke about Journey Healing Institute. Don't want to rehash that. But I also have another faculty member who will drop in from time to time and teach some of the modules, or maybe a class or two, and that's Alea, and we call her Dia. And she's a doctoral candidate in education leadership for change program at Fielding University, and her research centers matriarchal and matrifocal wisdom teachings, dream work, conscious work around dreaming and ancestral dreaming, and she is powerful. I had her guest lecture in one of my classes last semester, and the students could not get enough of her. And so she said that she would definitely love to drop in and co-teach some of the modules. And so that's Dia's background. And so now let's talk about the modules, and I'll send this deck to you in case the font is kind of small. It looks a little small on my screen. I didn't realize it. But module 1. So each module, I designed each module to guide you through this kind of layered journey of remembering, reflecting, reclaiming, remembering, reflecting, reclaiming. And so together they invite you to explore ancestral, cultural, and spiritual roots of Black women's wisdom while confronting the forces that have sought to suppress it. And so through these explorations, you will begin to deepen in your understanding of how to, where the root of your generational wounding comes from. And a lot of it is spiritual conquest, is religious conquest. And compound that with the transatlantic slave trade, compound that with the contemporary trauma, compound that with poverty and all the things that we experience on a daily basis, the constant extraction of our labor, our bodies, compounding all of that. And so really exploring how all of that shapes out so we can get to the root of it, to release it, to awaken to our sacred purpose, to course correct, to shift, to do all the things that we need to do for intergenerational healing and empowerment. And so the first module, Black Women, the Architects of Existence. And I got that title from the book, The Architects of Existence, which is one of the core texts that we will dive into. It's called The Architects of Existence, the Ajay and Yoruba Cosmology. And so going to the cosmological roots of African spirituality as the embodiment of the divine Black feminine. What does that look like? And so getting into understanding the cosmic primordial mothers from a embodied standpoint, from a, again, cosmological standpoint, from a day-to-day standpoint, from a spiritual leadership standpoint. So really diving deep into there. So the two texts for that we'll go through, and this is every 3 weeks, we'll go into a new module. We'll spend time in one module for 3 weeks. And so the two texts, Architects of Existence and When God Was a Black Woman, which is a really powerful and interesting read. And this author, Joseph Gibson, he kind of takes, if you all are familiar with the book When God Was a Woman, and in that book, I think that I want to say that's Marilyn Stone. I can't remember the author, but When God Was a Woman, but she never mentions that it being a Black woman, right? You know, and so really, again, tracing back our origin stories through artifacts, through cultural histories of land, of place, and looking at when God was a woman, but not only was a woman, was a Black woman. And so we'll dive into that. And so our first assignment will be a statement of intent. And Medea kind of already like preface that. Why are you here? You know, what is it that you want to get out of this course, of this exploration? And how and why are you being called in this moment to be a part of this particular program? So module 2 is the dismemberment of Black women's identities, bodies, and spirits. So again, getting to the root on what happened. If we're the creator of all of this, how did the disconnect come through? And again, it's through so much religious conquest. You are going to be surprised when you find out what really happened to us spiritually and how we were at the top of religions and spiritual hierarchies, how everyone came to us as high priestess and oracles. I've even had past lifetimes. So as a spiritualist, I get downloads about a lot of past lifetimes. And I've had so many lifetimes as a high priestess who had my power siphoned by rape, by force, by forcing silence. Like a lot of shit happened to Black women, especially Black spiritual women in ancient times, that caused us to put our spiritual power and knowingness to kind of put it underground. And so in Mama Zogby's book, The Sibyls, she speaks to a lot of that. And that is one of the texts that we're going to cover with Module 2, as well as continuing some of the readings within Architects of Existence. The assignment for that will be some physical and spiritual archaeology of our lineages. And so I think that work is really, really important because, again, because of our dismemberment and severance from our lineages, a lot of the work that we have to do in remembering is spiritual work. It's a spiritual archaeology. It's a spiritual remembrance of these lineages. And so I've been able to do a lot of that work, enough for me to know that I was once a Sibyl, as well as a high priestess in Egypt and Mesopotamia and Carthage. And so, being able to tap spiritually into these lifetimes to really understand why you're being called to this work in the here and now. And your lineage is called throughout throughout time and into this work. Module 3, pulpit patriarchy. And this I kind of got, if you all read, and this will be our core text for this module, is The Day God Saw Me as Black. D. Danielle Thomas does this incredible job at naming the harm that the Black church has instituted. And don't get me, this is not a bashing of Christianity or the Black church, but it is really an acknowledgement that there has been a lot of suppression, oppression, and harm of Black women in terms of the policing of our bodies, in terms of the perpetual servitude to the church and to the pastor, in terms of us not being in high positions of leadership within the church. A lot of these things need to be brought into the light, not to condemn, but to heal, because we can't heal what we won't acknowledge. And she does an incredible job throughout this book of not acknowledging a lot of that harm in a way that is so relatable. And so I want to dive down into her particular text when we talk about pulpit patriarchy, because it really gets into the contemporary aspects of what Black women have been experiencing for generations. And we'll do a reflective paper after that module. And then the last module is the Great Return. What does it look like to reclaim ritual and remembering? What is it like to reclaim our connection to land and the water and nature and a matriarchal consciousness? And when I talk about matriarchal consciousness, it's more from a nurturing perspective. It's more from a healing perspective. And it's also more from a destructive perspective when things are out of order and out of balance. And so that's a holistic part of our journey and our story, is being able to have the boundaries and to sever that which is not serving us from a tribal or from a clan perspective, cutting the cancer out. And that's destructive. And that's the time that we're in right now. Everything is not, I am not an all love and light teacher. I'm not. I'm all for destroying that which no longer serves. And there is some balance in doing that. There's harmony in doing that and cutting the cancer away. And so, what does the great return look like? It looks like restoring this personal power without shame, without guilt. With I'm using Medea's terminology, smiting. Because that's in our wheelhouse as well as Black women. So it's reclaiming all of that. Our sensuality, our sexuality, our bodies have been so demonized for our sexual a lot of what you're seeing now with Black women, just in terms of standing in our sexual power, even that's being, they always twerking. Black women, like, leave us the fuck alone. We moving out a lot of that historical trauma that has been embodied in our genitals, in our womb, in our, and so working, moving that energy. And so this work is about embodiment, because a lot of that trauma is stored in our bodies. And so how can we release it if we're totally disconnected from our bodies? Because everybody has demonized it. We even demonize our bodies, shaming our bodies, shaming our sexuality, all of the things. And so the great return is about reclaiming all aspects of ourselves, our collective power, our sensuality, our joy. The books I want to focus on here: Spirit of Intimacy. Oh my gosh, because we have got to reconcile our relationships with the divine masculine, and the Spirit of Intimacy goes deep into those aspects of spirit, of leading with spirit. Spirits Comes from Water is another powerful book I want to dive into, and Sensual Knowledge, Mina Salami. And mind you, there will be supplemental materials throughout. I will strongly encourage you to buy the books as textbooks, but again, we're not going to go over all of it. And even if you don't buy the book, I have them all, and so I can print out sections or chapters, or what is it that we need to cover. Because with this being a public course, I don't want to mandate that everybody get all the texts, especially if I have them and can share them. And I'll still be sharing supplemental articles with you. Let me stop here and ask if there are any questions about the syllabus and the schedule before we move into enrollment, and then I'll let you all go because I know it's getting late. Okay. So program enrollment. And so this is, again, a 12-week immersive offering. And so it's going to be intensive, but in a good way, in a way that it will make you feel connected, alive, knowledgeable, and instantly answering that call for healing these cycles that we are being called to heal. And so I am offering an early bird discount. If you all know right away that you want to sign up for this program, you get 20% off if you sign up by the 3rd, which is a week from today. And here's the pricing. I tried to make it as feasible as possible in order to deliver the course and the content and the materials and pay the instructors, et cetera, et cetera. And so the tier 1, I'm offering subsidized pricing for those of us who need some help. And so Journey Healing Institute is a nonprofit, and preferably we'll be getting donations to assist people with paying for the programming. And so that enables me to offer a subsidized pricing of $490. And this is for the entire program, all the recordings, your projects, your assignments. We have a community discussion board, everything that we talked about. I don't have to repeat all of that stuff. But the tier 1 pricing is $490 for subsidized. And again, if you enroll before next week, that's 20% off. The standard pricing is $620 for all of the things. And then I also have a pay it forward pricing for those of you who have a little bit more in resources and want to subsidize the enrollment of another student. And I'm going to be offering scholarships, and the scholarship is free pricing and enrollment based upon the number of people that I get to enroll. I was kind of flirting with it earlier today. So I think with every fifth person, I will offer a scholarship, a free scholarship, a need-based scholarship for someone who wants to take the course and can't afford to do it at this time. Any questions?
Dr. Kimberly, could you just explain that tier 3 again? I don't know if I fully understand.
Yeah. So the pay it forward it's a higher fee, but what you're paying for is the opportunity to subsidize another student who may not be able to. And again, that is through the scholarship, because with these courses and workshops, I tend to always get someone say, "Hey, I want to take it, but financially, I just can't do it right now." And so the subsidize, if you invest in the subsidize, that'll help that student um, take the class. Does that make sense?
So basically it would be paying like for myself and another person.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What would be the difference then of doing that or doing like tier 1 and just paying for myself and another person?
No difference. You can do that.
Okay.
You can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what does the pay it forward also does is help us create more scholarships. And so it wouldn't be
Got it.
just so you can do two of the tier 1 for two people, and that's like 900 close to 1,000, which is fine. Or you can do the pay it forward, not worry about paying for nobody else, but the balance that you pay, the extra that you pay will go into a scholarship for two, three, for other people who want to take the class, and, they're able to apply and just get the scholarship. So it's like a scholarship pool, pulling funds together to create the scholarship to give to other students.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You are welcome. And these, I do have installment plans, so you don't have to pay it all at once. So if you're interested in that, let me know about that as well. And so in conclusion, this is a sacred invitation. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you all to join us at the nexus of planetary healing, because this work truly, truly is foundational, not just for healing self, but for healing family, for healing community, for healing the planet, for healing everyone connected to you. And so I say, in the midst of this age of enlightenment that we're in, which is definitely unveiling hidden, inconvenient truths about how systemic generational oppressions that are rooted in all of the isms that we talk about, and the hidden one, which is religion, that we don't talk about, how it is destroying the planet and all her inhabitants. And as such, Black women, we have a clearer lens in which to unveil and articulate the ancient roots of oppression and the spiritual power that we innately have to heal. As we are discovering that our exploitation, our ongoing exploitation, has been sustained by ideologies that keep us separated from and in constant conflict with the source of our innate power, which is spirit. And so this relentless attack, and we're seeing it in contemporary times yet and still on Black women and Black motherhood, is very closely tied to the ecological destruction, extraction, and commodification of Mother Earth. And this exploitation, it must stop. It has to stop, or we face the threat of planetary destruction. And so planetary healing requires the spiritual and ancestral reawakening of African diasporic women whose DNA holds the dormant source codes of the primordial mothers that are awaiting conscious activation. And so again, I invite you to join me